Welcome to Family Guidons, the podcast created by military spouses for military families.
We're the ones holding down the home front during deployments, state activations, and everything in between.
Here we have an honest conversation about the realities of military life, the highs, the hard moments, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward.
Whether you're new to the military community or a seasoned spouse who's seen it all,
Family Guidons is your place for connection, support, and real conversations.
Because no one understands life like the ones who've been living it beside them.
This is Family Guidons. Fall in. Welcome back to Family Guidons. Today we are talking about family readiness and why that is important. I'm Michelle Matheny. I am a proud military spouse of 14 years, a mom to 3 young girls, a small business owner, and a supporter of our military.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Stillwell. I am a longtime military spouse, 31 years to be exact. I am a mom to 3 children, 2 daughters. My youngest is a son, and he is currently serving on active duty at Fort Stewart.
My name's Kathy Bridgers. I'm a military wife of 28 years. I have 2 adult children and one who's been in the Air National Guard and is currently deployed. He's been in for 9 years. And today we're going to talk about family days and SFRG. What are they, why they matter, and how to plan them so that they actually work for the families. And military life can be isolating, and these events are really important so that families can connect, feel like they're not alone, feel like they're not isolated. Just brings everybody together in a less stressful, enjoyable event.
Yeah. We hope that our listeners will come away today knowing what the FRG is and does, how to reach out to the FRG to become involved in unit activities, and then also to kind of get some insight into the way events such as family days are planned.
Yeah, so I think the idea of the family readiness group has kind of had some evolutions over the years for sure, as the way the military handles those programs has changed and just, kind of the ebb and flow of life. But I think at its core, the idea of family readiness now is a command-sponsored program. So the military has put this in the hands of the unit commanders to kind of make this happen. And it's not so much in the old days. I feel like it was, just kind of a social club. That's what they focused on, bake sales and fundraising and social events. And now the focus is really more on trying to help with the readiness and resiliency of the families and support those needs. So it's a little bit different. We had to do a little bit of research for this because I think the programs are different on the Army versus the Air side. So on the Army side, it's called the SFRG now, the Soldier and Family Readiness Group. And on the Air side, it looks a little bit different, the Commander Key Spouse Program. And I know they have military and family readiness centers that they use. So maybe it's not so much unit by unit, but maybe more even installation by installation, it sounds like, from your experience.
It's a little more cohesive as a whole.
Yeah.
It's not broken down as much. I don't think we're as separated as the Army is as far as units and locations.
Yeah, well, and at least, we're talking about here in South Carolina.
Yeah, it's more centrally located, the Air side.
Right, versus the Army, there's so many more Army National Guard units, and they're spread out all across our state, so it has to be a little bit more individualized to the units. But really the goal of them, no matter how you're doing it, is just to figure out, as you said, how to bring families together, how to get rid of that, kind of sense of doing this alone, and try to make this a support network for the families and the service members.
Related to that is the W.A.R.M acronym. And I had, Michelle, you mentioned it in our planning, and I had to look it up because I wasn't, exactly sure. I knew what the foundations were, but for the responsibilities for the SFRG. So let's talk about that W.A.R.M acronym. The first one, the W, has to do with welcoming, being a welcoming face for the unit. And that includes new members as well, reaching out to them and including them. The A, to maintain accurate information. And that includes phone numbers, how to get in touch with the people, maintaining that. But also for the R, to be a reliable source of information that flows, back and forth between the family members to the command group, and vice versa, from the command on down to the family members. And then you're going to have to help me with this one, Michelle. On the M, maintain sustainable processes. What exactly does that mean?
So in my interpretation of that and in my experience, thus far over the years with the SFRG, I think there's a lot of fluctuation as commanders come and go or volunteers come and go. So trying to kind of set up a foundation so that the soldiers that are staying with units or when new people come in, that they can kind of know what to expect. Okay. That the SFRG, the family group, is always kind of giving you that same experience.
Gotcha.
Yeah, okay. Which is a challenge. All of those have their own challenges. I think being welcoming is probably the easiest part. Right. All of the other stuff, can be a little more difficult.
A little more tedious.
Being from the air side, and SFRG was new to me coming into the podcast. Can you tell us, what's the setup? Do we have different people that are in charge of different jobs and have different roles? And it can suit anybody depending on what your gift is. Could you tell us what those are?
Yeah. So I think it can be as much or as little as people want it to be. Like if we're talking to our potential volunteers and, family members out there, I don't want anybody to think that this has to become a second full-time job if you get involved with the family group. You certainly can find a lot of opportunities, but you can also just kind of find your niche, like you said, and work in that. But at its core, a family readiness group has to have the commander involved in some way, because they are the ones who are kind of setting the tone. They are approving all of the things that are going on kind of at that highest level. And then the unit also has to have on record a command family readiness representative, which is another service member that is kind of responsible for being the liaison for the volunteers and helping them get what they need and getting information. They are kind of the boots on the ground assistant to the commander, who's the kind of the main head of it. But and then beyond that, there's all different volunteer levels. So every group has the lead, the advisor, or the lead volunteer, or on the air side, I think it's called the key support liaison or key spouse. And so they are just kind of the volunteer that helps to coordinate all the efforts, getting the other people together and the communication in between.
And you're currently serving as that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
For your
Yes.
unit.
So our unit has two statutory volunteers, which means that we are on record. So that's kind of another part. You can either be a volunteer of record and you're on the official command memo, which that's myself and one other spouse, and we kind of work together on that. Or you can have gratuitous volunteers that just help you with planning events, or they say, I want to be the one that's always in charge of the food or welcoming new families, or, things like that. So again, you can find your niche in one of those more gratuitous roles where maybe you're not on paper, but you can still participate as much or as little as you want. And then we also have full-time staff with the Guard, or if you're on, an active duty installation, they would be like the military family readiness specialists or key support, key spouse liaison mentors. And they are the ones that, again, in addition to that command family readiness rep, that can kind of be a resource for the volunteers to say, hey, we want to do this. What's the best way to go about it? Or what resources might be available? And that's where it kind of gets to the other big, kind of unmentioned part of the SFRG or family groups, which is the community partners. Like, we could not do the things that we do for the unit or the families without community partners. So if you are in a place where you are involved in your family group, you definitely want to be looking for those community partners. And it's a huge list that you can kind of pull from, some ideas.
You know, being businesses that our service members actually work for, a lot of times those businesses are so supportive of the military and love to lend their support in any way that they can.
Yeah.
So you've got your businesses, you have your churches, your community groups, the VFWs. All of those are wonderful resources for the different units, you know, around them.
And this is something I didn't know until recently, but there's actually like a grant available to VFW posts if they want to volunteer or apply to like adopt a unit. So like we have a VFW post who has adopted Bill's unit while they've been deployed. And so they can apply for grant money to help fund things that they want to do for us. So, you know, supplying meals for family day events or, you know, whatever. But they also, the VFWs, American Legions, they are great sources of people who truly care about the military and they want to be involved. So like we had members of the VFW come to our family day 2 weeks ago and serve food and help set up and help clean up. And we could not have done it without them. I didn't realize how much would go into it until they were there, just like rolling up their sleeves and pitching in. And they had so much fun and we loved having them there.
So what I'm hearing is your SFRGs are not just 1, 2, 3 people. It's a whole collection of people, and you know that's kind of that's comforting to know, because if you want to get involved, you can do it without the worry of, gosh, if I say I'm wanting to help, is a lot going to fall on me?
Right.
So I'm hearing also that you can do as little or as much.
Yes, absolutely. And I encourage people, you know, if you know your unit needs this, if you don't have the structure set up and, you know, you feel passionately about helping to support it, but you can't be the main person, you know, the main person does not have to be a spouse or an immediate family member of a service member. Like, again, volunteers, you know, retirees or community members that just have a passion for supporting the military, they make some of the best SFRG or family group leaders, just because they're not quite so stressed or intimately involved in the stressful times that happen. So they, you know, kind of have a little more bandwidth sometimes to do some of this stuff.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I was talking to Scott about how they do it on the air side, and he said they a lot of times will have an honorary wing commander, and it's not a military person, it's a local businessman who just donates, spends a lot of time, is a really big military supporter. They also use that honorary wing commander to contact other business people, because they're usually tied into other business people in the community. And that's how they get, for our family day, that's how they get the food. That's how they get a lot of the events. That's how they fund most of the activities.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's a great idea.
And that's a great way to divide that up, so it's not us asking, it's, you know, an interested partner, you know, asking for help in
You
that
help
situation.
me and I'll help you.
You know? So one of the most visible things that the SFRGs do is plan events. And I think that's where a lot of people are familiar with, oh yeah, that they did this, like family days, for instance. And being new, if you're new to, say, a unit or new to participating in a family day, going in can look like, oh my gosh, how in the world did they pull this off? And it really can be broken down into your 5 W's, your who, what, when, where, why kind of questions. And as with any kind of event planning, you start with your why. Why are we getting everybody together? What's the purpose of this? Is it unit cohesion? Is it celebrating a successful end of annual training for the year? Is it celebrating the end of the year with the holidays? There can be all kinds of reasons for having a family day or any event.
Yeah.
Yeah, the air side does the family day normally in the spring. They do usually a fall kind of festive get together in the fall, and they also do a Christmas get together, and Santa flies in a F-16 and the kids get to take pictures with them. So
That's
it's pretty cool.
exciting.
It's really cool.
Can I come?
Yeah.
next year. Next,
Yeah, it really is. It's fun. It's even exciting for the parents. You're like, oh,
I love that.
But and when they come back from a deployment, sometimes they'll just throw a celebration.
Along with that, I think it's good to build in resources.
Yeah.
Have a representative from Military One Source, or like TRICARE reps, or any of the outside resources that have information that they can give to family members. That's always a good.
Yeah, I mean, I think you definitely want to keep it fun, right?
Yes.
Like one of the main pitfalls I think you find of these kind of events is if you talk too long or it's too work related, like people aren't going to want to come back. So number one, you got to keep it fun, but in the spirit of kind of the revised mission of these groups, it's about the readiness and resiliency. So when we did our day a couple weeks ago, we had a table of representatives from behavioral health who were there because we're nearing the end of the deployment for his unit. So talking to family members about resources and reintegration and that kind of thing. And we had someone there from family programs talking about, what they have for the youth and school supplies. We were passing out school supplies and different things like that. So bringing some kind of, like you said, resource component into it, I think is helpful because a lot of times the family members don't know what's available to them because, let's face it, we all know how information tends to die in our service members' inbox. And so like getting in front of the families and seeing them in person is the best time to tell them about what's available to them, for sure.
Where did y'all have your family day?
We did it at their armory.
Okay.
It's tough in the Guard because people are so spread out. So we have tried to kind of move around the state, but doing it at kind of their home base is always the easiest.
Makes
It's
sense.
the least, logistically challenging. But there are lots of other places you could do it. I mean, here we could go to Fort Jackson and use one of their spaces, or out at, one of the training centers or something like that. I'm trying to think of other places we've done
Like
events.
community parks,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Well, a lot of times doing some small, some of the smaller events at things like that, or even, when we did our Christmas ones this year, because they were deployed, we kind of broke it up. So we did regional ones, and we were meeting at coffee shops and things like that, and just kind of renting or reserving a little space there for the groups that were coming. So you can make it as big or as small as you want it to be, or as you feel like appropriate for, where your people are at.
Well, and as you vary size, if it's not a huge family day, if you go back to your why, it might be that you want to do something for, say, single servicemen. That and women, that could be a smaller event in a coffee shop or somewhere that wasn't huge, something a little more intimate in situations like that. Maybe that didn't involve, say, the children.
Right. I also think, if you're just starting out, to tag on to another event is a really smart way to do it. If you don't want to have, kind of the pressure of planning all the things yourself. Like we have had kind of sub things going on at larger events where we say, okay, if you're coming to this event, come 30 minutes early and meet us, in this area, and we can kind of all be together. Or in the fall, we did one. There's a small college near their armory in Newberry, South Carolina, and we tagged on to their military appreciation football game.
Oh,
So we
nice.
hosted a tailgate, but then like the main bulk of the day was at the game, and we were recognized at the game, and it was kind of cool. And so you can you can find ways to make it a little lower pressure.
Right. Right. So we've talked about like when you could do this: Christmas, end of annual training, football games, and your when kind of has to do with your why, who it is that you're getting together as well. What takes place at a family day?
Ooh, lots of fun stuff. We have vendor booths, like you said, so you can get information on all kinds of resources. They have face painting. They usually do a dunking booth with a commander. So if you have a commander that you would like to see dunked in the water, it's a
I can think of one.
good time to take the opportunity to do that.
We've not done that before, but that might be happening at our next one before.
My husband volunteered for a pie in the face one where people had to like pay a certain amount. This was one of the Christmas ones, and they got to do a pie. Now it really was just a plate of
whipped cream or something.
I love that.
Yeah, so he was a good sport to do that. But yeah, so fun stuff like that. Face painting. They usually have drug sniffing dogs that will do demos. Sometimes they have guys parachuting in from planes. Sometimes we can get Shaw Air Force Base to do some flybys and do a little like mini air demo. So
I'm not going to lie. The Air Force has way cooler toys than the Army side does, I feel like. But we have had some displays like where they'll do, Bradleys or tanks or things like that for the kids to climb into. We've also done like a touch a truck, like if you can get the emergency services for your post or for the community, if you're out, somewhere. We had the emergency services. We had a fire truck, a police car. We had their bloodhound, that was going to come out. And so, yeah, some other just things to make it seem a little more exciting.
Yeah, emergency services pitches in with the events, too. They're really, actually, they do a lot. They're very supportive, and they bring out the vehicles, which is really
That's
cool.
kind of a twofold thing, too, because then they're there and we talked to them and they were willing to kind of be on standby in case there were any issues,
Yes.
Medical issues or anything like that. So
And
good thing to consider.
Let's acknowledge them.
Yeah.
We don't really think about, they have a huge responsibility, especially on the air side, because if something happens to one of those planes, they have to be really on top of it, and they are. They're great.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier pitfalls and not making it more of a talking event. And we've talked about some of the fun things. Are there any other pitfalls that you can think of or that y'all have considered when you've recently planned?
I feel like the biggest thing is just making it too work related or too, you want to try to keep it fun. I think trying to do too much, can also be a pitfall. If you are over planning, then it's like there's so much going on that people can't even take advantage of it. I think the other thing I would say is also making sure that you're considering all of the demographics in what you're planning. Like you don't want to plan a family day that only has activities for young kids if your unit has a lot of single soldiers that might be bringing, their parents or something like that. So just kind of trying to think about those demographics and have a little something for everybody, or be very transparent in your advertising of it that this is geared more towards the kids and you're welcome to come if you want, but the focus is, the kiddos.
And I guess that goes back to your W's, your why and who at that particular event.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, though, is just trying to plan interactive things that will get people talking. And I also think, back to your point of being welcoming, extra volunteers come in really handy when you can try to make people almost responsible for being the welcoming committee, making sure that people are seeking out people who are walking in that may look a little overwhelmed or lost or new people to the unit. It can also be really nice for volunteers to make a phone call to newer family members rather than just getting the generic email invitation, but somebody reaching out to say, hey, we're doing this and we really hope that you come. That personal contact makes such a big difference.
I think that's really important, the personal contact. So reach out, and that specific phone call to specific people is really important. But also if someone feels apprehensive about volunteering, it's always been my experience that if I say, give me a job to do, I want to be the one to hand out the waters or to fill the drink cups and all of that. That helps me because it gives me a job, and then it makes for natural conversation. So if you know you're that person and you want to participate, that's a good way to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think above all, it's just, people remember feeling welcomed. They remember fun things, or especially for, the kids and, the people that they want to focus their energy on. So, just try to be welcoming and try to make it fun.
it's a time to make those connections to the people that you might need to reach out to in the future for mental health stress, like
Right.
our next episode. So.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I think one of the biggest like pitfalls maybe of Family Day is not taking advantage of the momentum that it generates to like keep people involved.
Right.
So that would be my last kind of, my suggestion is to make sure that you are following up and that you're taking advantage of the good feelings from the Family Day to keep people engaged.
Make sure to acknowledge all the volunteers and all the local businesses that have contributed. Make sure that they know how much they're appreciated. Stay in contact with them.
Yeah. I also think, sending out a little survey or, to everybody or at least to the volunteers as like a, I always hear my husband talk about after action reports. So, kind of doing that, like what went well? What do we need to work on for next time? Did you have any ideas that you thought of in the moment? Like, oh, we should have done this, like save that for the next one. But if you talk about those things right afterwards, you have a lot better chance of remembering them for the next one.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Well, another way to keep the momentum going is to find different ways to keep the communication going between people. So it's not just at the events when you see each other. You can do newsletters. You can have maybe a group calendar so people know what's going on. You can do social media groups, group chats. I've had that happen with some of the spouses, so you can kind of keep updated to what's going on.
We do a newsletter, and my husband just commented the other day. He's like, "Are we going to keep this going when we get home?" And I said, "I think so. I mean, it's especially important during a deployment, but like I want to keep this hard work. I didn't do all this for the last 10 months to just like let it fall by the wayside when they came back, but we've built the foundation now, so we need to keep it going." So the newsletters, we have a social media private group where we can, post events and things. And
Well, it's that year-long connection that will come in handy when there is a deployment or when you need other members of that unit to come together in times of, maybe some stressful times.
Yeah. I think especially with the Guard, we have a tendency to not think about this until a deployment is looming. And then it's almost like, it almost feels a little bit too late, or it feels frantic to like try to force these connections or this communication. So like I said, I plan to just keep this going for the just in case in the future.
You're doing great things.
Thank you.
So the family groups are command-sponsored support networks. Find your unit's contact person and get connected.
Yeah. And it really doesn't have to be scary.
No, I mean, just a minimal effort. And if you're not comfortable with the assignment they give you, tell them what your gifts are. And they can shift you to something that you are comfortable with.
Yeah.
It's flexible. And the real goal is connection and keeping the momentum going.
So hopefully with this information, then we hope that you will feel empowered to reach out to your SFRG, to volunteer at an upcoming event, and maybe just simply to introduce yourself to someone new, someone you don't know. Participating in Family Day is a great way to feel that unit connection.
Absolutely. And even if you don't want to volunteer, just reach out to get connected. Like make sure you're on the email list or you're on the social media group or whatever so that you can get the information. And then maybe you'll change your mind in the future. But if you enjoyed today's podcast, we'd love for you to hit that follow button on whatever platform you listen on. And, just share this with other military families or people that you think would be interested in the information. This is how we grow. We'd love to hear your stories about what has worked for you and your experiences with the family groups and family days. So feel free to email familyguidons@gmail.com. And our next episode is titled The Power of a Pause, where we'll talk about the importance of taking care of your mental health, which is such an important topic. So as always, thank you for listening to Family Guidons from the Bluff Road Readiness Center in Columbia, South Carolina, to wherever you may be. Until next time.